Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Someone on Reddit told me that my intros are too long, and I felt sad. So we're just gonna get into the video. You saw the title, you know what it is. Let's go. Step one was to obviously find the perfect candidate for this doll, and I was leaning towards this blonde one at first, but then I was worried that because her hair was in a ponytail, she might be very bald in the center. So I ended up opting for the ginger one here, who we're gonna call Stacy. Once I'd managed to get Stacy home, I needed to free her from her plastic prison. Unfortunately, I can't rip through cable ties, so I did need to admit defeat and get scissors anyway, which probably would have made the entire process easier had I just done that in the first place. Then we just yeet that plastic case into oblivion, and we can get started on the good stuff. Because Emily is, well, dead, I wanted to try and hollow out her cheeks to be able to match that same gaunt expression that Emily has in the movie. However, I don't know if you guys know much about Barbie dolls, but generally speaking, they are injection molded, which means, you guessed it, they're hollow. Meaning I did this for a whole 5 minutes before realizing this actually wasn't going to be achievable, but also realizing everything that I had done didn't really make a difference anyway. Not giving up on my dream though, I violently ripped off her head so I could thin out her neck, which I'm sure most of you can probably guess how that went. Regardless of having failed twice now, I continued on to the arm and leg. I don't really know. I really could have just painted them, but for some reason I was committed to the bit. This took me like 3 hours. I'm not even joking. I had to sit there with a respirator as well, because this is plastic. It's hot plastic. After cleaning up my war crimes and taking a good long think about what I've done, it was time to try and remove the face. Another thing I didn't know, you need 100% acetone to remove paint off dolls. I had nail polish remover which has acetone in it, which I thought would work fine. I was wrong. So after already going through the first 3 stages of grief, the denial, refusing to believe that the sponge just wasn't going to take off the paint, the anger, realizing that it in fact was not going to take off the paint, and then the bargaining with myself of why didn't I go and research this and why didn't I go buy the acetone earlier, I finally landed at depression, which looked a bit like this. But don't worry, I learned acceptance over the next 2 months because it's now December and I have to make this Christmassy. So with a patch on her face and a new spring in my step, I decided to continue the project. Starting with her light blue base and some acrylic paint, however it's thin as shit and I had to do like 8 layers of this, so we're just gonna skip to when it's nice and aesthetically put on, because trust me, you don't want to see this process if you like doll transformations. It wasn't pretty, it took forever, and I'm over it. So, now that we're nice and done with the base, I ended up painting the bones, which you can't really see because I'm left-handed and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry. This is a struggle with every single video I have. But basically, I went in with a dark grey colour, then blended it out again with the bone colour, which was white mixed with a bit of yellow ochre, if you want to get technical. I wasn't paying attention too much to the anemone. The anatomical structure of the bones, just because it's a tiny little doll and I don't care. I then did the exact same shading, marking out the kneecap, the femur, and the other 2, which doesn't really matter anyway because it gets covered by the boots in the end. I'm gonna keep this in the edit anyway because I spent a lot of time on the foot because I completely forgot that I was gonna put boots on, and I want you to see the work that I actually did do. It was then time to tackle the hair, which I thought would be my pride and joy because if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you know I've done a lot of hair dyeing videos. However, boy was I wrong. The method that I opted to do is using watered down acrylic paint, which, for all intents and purposes, should have worked. As you can see, I was saturating the roots because for some reason I wanted to do this like it was an actual salon, and then I eventually also just dunked the rest of her hair into the cup of water that I had to be able to fully saturate the rest of the hair. But regardless of the love and care I put into the technique of doing this, as I left the hair to dry, all of the water started to run down to the ends and drip off, thus causing all of the color to seep out with it. I did multiple rounds of drying and dunking. I even resorted to food coloring, which I have seen many other people do, but nothing was taking and I kept ending up with a swampy green mess. So after throwing blue dye everywhere and caking everything that I love, I ended up just literally painting her hair, which made it a little bit stiff, but you know what? It kind of adds to the vibe and I'm here for it. With that out of the way, it was back to some more body modifications by adding in her ribs. I did this simply just by adding some really thick acrylic paint lines and then drying it with a hairdryer. I then just outlined those details in black. I did actually add a red and like a yellow ochre to try and give it some dimension, but you can't see it anyway, so I'm just gonna say I painted it black. It is now time for the moment you've all been waiting for, the face. This is the make or break moment of any transformation because if you paint a wonky eye, it's over for you. And for anyone out there who loves collecting custom dolls but don't like the price range, or this goes for I guess any handmade thing in general, I just want to put this out here to you right now. This is how long it took me to paint one singular eyeball, and not even the whole eyeball, just the white of the eyeball. I just want you to watch this unedited clip of how long it took me to paint a white circle. Now I could have sped that clip up and kept the timer there all the same, but I feel like some of you don't really know how long 3 minutes is. I sat and did this project for 14 hours. 14 hours? That's insane. Anyway, once the rest of the face painting was thoroughly covered up by my left hand, we were actually done with the face and it was on to the final step, the clothes. I made the clothes by taking a piece of faux fur, which I'm actually using for another project, and cut it into small strips. I then used a glue gun to try and fold over the edges to mitigate some of the fur damage that is currently covering all of my studio. If you've ever worked with any type of fur, then you know. If you know, you know. I then painted the strip using the 2 paints that were just on screen, leaving about 1 centimeter at the bottom to create a very on-brand aesthetic Christmas trim. I repeated this process twice to be able to make a crop top and a mini skirt. If you don't know where this is from by now, you will in a bit. Then using a bead of hot glue, I applied them to our doll, which, if I can just say, this outfit turned out looking so fetch. I then repeated the process for the skirt and ended up moving on to the final piece, which was the boots. I made the boots straight up out of hot glue because by this point I was 7 hours into the project and it was getting to the point where I was getting a bit delirious. So after using the hot glue to make some really cute knee-high boots on both legs, I left it to set and then painted everything black. And with that, everything's done and it's onto the glamour shots. I just filmed my entire outro with no microphone, so bye, subscribe.